HHDG.
Peace, HHDG. We are on another episode of HHDG Media, the podcast. And on tonight's show, we have a man of many hats and talents coming out of Washington, D.C., DJ Two-Tone Jones.
Yeah. Man. What's good? It's good. Peace, brother. Thanks again for having me, man.
Man, it's definitely a pleasure to have you on here. I mean, like I said, man of many hats that we will definitely dive into. But
word.
Tell us a little bit about how you started out. Like, what was the first thing in hip hop that got you into the culture?
I think I can pinpoint the one specific thing. I mean, I think like a lot of folks, there was hip hop crossover hits on the radio and stuff like that growing up. But the one true hip hop moment that really grabbed me was ninth grade. One of my homeboys, my man named Cody, we were chilling by the doorway of the geometry teacher's class, and he started freestyling and like off the top of the head and was rapping about what the teacher was wearing. And that was my first time, the whole concept of freestyling. I'd never heard of it. And it was just I was just like, yo, that's the most incredible thing I've ever seen up close. And soon after that, I just dove into it after that. Yeah, that's when hip hop first grabbed me.
Nice. So after that influence, did you decide to maybe take a stab at the MCing yourself?
A little bit, but I was in terms of music, I gravitated towards drums early on. So I used to do like stuff at school, concert band, jazz band, and then even in high school and college, I was doing marching band, drumline stuff. But I was getting into like hip hop albums, and I would say definitely like 93 was definitely like the year I started really kind of digging in even more. I started watching Rap City every single day after school. It was like homework for me. Actually, me and the same cat who first freestyled in front of me, we went on to start a band together in high school. So I actually played drums, had a cat who played guitar, and then we had at least 2 to 3 cats who rhymed. So we did a whole like live band, kind of like live hip hop / alternative kind of thing. But I just always just kind of stayed, just interested in like the music itself and production. And I started dabbling with like making beats a little bit, maybe towards the end of high school, going into college. And it wasn't until I finished college and moved up to DC for grad school when I finally was like, I've been interested in, I've always been interested in DJing, never tried it. And I just had some money saved up, bought myself some turntables in 2001 and started teaching myself, practicing at night, and rest is history.
Okay. So what were your first turntables?
Oh, techniques, I did mess up in my first purchase. I had somebody at the music shop like try to sell me on some other turntables, save $100, here and there. And I did it. And then when my homeboy saw that what I got, he was like, take them back. So I took them back, got me some techniques. Been rocking off of that ever since,
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I came up on my uncle DJing, and I got into it as well because of that. So nice. He had the techniques.
Okay.
And so that was my early start. But at home, he gave me some belt drives. And what he said was, he said, understand what you're doing on mine. When you go home and practice, you're going to see the difference. When you get better on those you're gonna see how much easier it is to do everything on the technique.
Yep. Yeah, that's the way to do it, man. That's the way to do it. Yeah, I did have one belt drive turntable before I got into DJing, but that was just for like when I started kind of getting into like playing records and sampling from records and stuff. But I also learned in that moment too, like, oh, this don't, they make it look a lot easier in terms of that record scheme, and but I learned the hard way. The belt drive is definitely is a more of a challenge, but practicing on belt drives will definitely make you, techniques and all that will be like butter,
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the way to go.
Yeah. And what mixes did you have at that time as well?
First mixer I started off with was I don't remember the exact model. I can picture it. It was a Gemini. It was black, Gemini joint. Not too big. I got some good traction on it for a good 5, 6, 7 years. Wore out the crossfader, all that good stuff. And then I want to say I held on to that until I graduated to a what are those? The TTM 57.
Okay.
Yeah, the range. So once Serato was kind of getting into the game, I got one of those mixers right before they built into Serato. So I still had to connect the box and all that good stuff. But that was definitely my old reliable for quite some time. Good solid 10 years off that bad boy. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now I know I've heard some of your mixtapes. Did you ever get into the battle scene?
Nah, not really. Not really. I think partly because when I started off DJing, I didn't really. My goal wasn't really like, I'm gonna be nice and everybody on these cuts and tricks and all that. It was just more from like just the basic standpoint of like, I felt like in my mind, I thought I would have a better song selection than others when I would go to like parties and functions, and just couldn't help being like kind of critical after a while of some of the stuff that cats were playing. And so I felt like, hey, at the very least, if nothing else, I feel like I could maybe have a decent song selection, and maybe I could, just get good at like transitions. But over time, just even when I was practicing teaching myself, like, started just picking up scratching and cutting just by default a little bit. And but I never really, went heavy on like, routines and tricks and stuff like that. I'm just in awe of like other cats that, from your rock raiders to executioners to beat junkies, all that, like DJ Lord, all the I'm definitely in awe of what these cats do. I can maybe at my best, I could do some of their basic routines here and there, but battling ain't really my thing. Yeah, I think when I try to compete and stuff, that just kind of throws me off. I feel like I always do better when I'm just like, just stay in my own lane, just do my thing, and it'll be all right from there. Yeah.
Nice. Now, one of your favorite mixtapes that you have is Blendmaster Pro 3000.
Oh yeah. yeah. That right there. And those are a lot of blends I've been sitting on for years. Actually most of those were recorded, probably like 10 years ago, almost. And part of the reason I put that out is that it really just kind of speaks to what I gravitated towards first when I started just kind of practicing on my own with the turntables. I just kind of naturally, and without any cues from anybody, I just would just remember like one of the first things I started trying to do was like match acapellas to instrumentals and do blends. And that was unbeknownst to me, I was actually teaching myself just like, matching tempos and stuff like that, beat matching. It helped out with a lot of that, mixing. And so I was always just practicing, messing around with different blends. And since my record collection wasn't but so big, of course, when I first started, it's just like, all right, you know, there were just specific blends that I would always try to do and duplicate maybe live or whatever else. So I just, you know, personally, I just really thought that with some of the blends I was doing, I always felt like, yo, this sounds like it, you know, it's meant to be, and just the cadence of the rhymes are like perfect over this. And so some of the blends, yeah, I just really, you know, thought I had like some really dope kind of combinations. And then some of them, you know, I got a little extra with them in terms of putting extra beats and stuff like that in there. So I always took pride in my blends. And one of the first mixtapes, I cassette tapes that I ever made for myself as a DJ, was just a compilation of blends of like, you know, so it wasn't even like a full mix together, but it was just like, here's what is it? Eric Sermon, just music blended over Slum Village Tainted, or you know, Royce da 5'9" Boom over Onyx Throw Your Guns in the Air beat, you know, or just different stuff like that. And it got to the point too, with some of them, like I would listen to them so much where I forget that, you know, it wasn't the original beat. You know, it was just like, oh yeah, that's right, that's the Slum Village joint, not the Eric, you know. So yeah, that Blend Master Pro joint, I was like, yeah, I've been sitting on some of these blends for so long, and some of them I'll slide into some of my sets over the years, but you know, I'm kind of now in a space like I need to kind of get this stuff out, share it, you know, share it more with folks.
I'm sure you got a lot more dope joints like that.
I got a part 2 I'm about to throw out there a little bit. Yeah.
There you go. You heard that.
Yep. It's coming.
Yeah.
Coming.
Yeah. One of the things I always loved about DJing is what you're talking about with the blends, because like sometimes an idea comes to your mind. Maybe I could try this. So, you know, you go to the turntable and see if you can get the tempo and everything, make it sound good. Because what you're doing at home eventually is going to be rocking in the club, and somebody's going to love that mix.
Oh yeah.
You're going to start spread the word talking about that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's that's the part of the ingenuity of DJing. You know, you're kind of doing, you know, some level of like production, live kind of production and remixing, you know, just with the blends and you know, even if it's like, you know, it's not even the acapella and instrumental, but it's just, you know, you got the intro of this one beat coming in blended with like the outro of this other, and just letting those rock together. Sometimes, you know, you just hear stuff that just sounds like it fits so well, and you just kind of capture those little moments that people can experience that with you. Yeah, those are definitely like, you know, some of my favorite parts of DJing.
Yeah. Up here in New York, you know, the big thing in the '90s was the mixtapes where you had the hip hop beats with the R&B.
Oh yeah.
Songs. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Capri was killing that, and yeah, all that. Yeah.
So what's your favorite type of music to spin?
I mean, you know, I'm definitely hip hop, you know, top to bottom. I'll definitely say that. And but I still like, you know, I like rocking. You know, I'll say honestly, like nowadays too, when I'm doing more up tempo parties kind of sets, I still just really enjoy going through some old, you know, classic kind of 80s, 70s kind of funk, soul, R&B stuff. You know, even a little bit of electronic and pop and stuff like that. So just kind of mixing it up. But you know, I like throwing in a little bit of Afro beat, and like throwing in, you know, a little bit of this, and you know, some 90s go, and you know, just kind of mixing it all up. So yeah, I like to touch on a variety of things, all, you know, house, all that. So but it definitely, all of that stems from, you know, really is just a lot, all of that still kind of stems from my just, you know, love and appreciation for hip hop, and just kind of where the sound and the music and the influences come from. So just being able to incorporate that in the sets too is great, you know, kind of those connections between the hip hop and then where it came from. So yeah, I'm all over the place sometimes.
And being that this is considered the day after the birth of hip hop, salute to you for being a DJ, because still a pinnacle, still a foundation going on. 2021.
Yep. Salute to all them cats. You know, the Godfathers, and from your Cool Hercs to your Flashes and Bambadas. Yeah, the DJs are ones who kind of really exploded this. Made this thing explode. All over the scene. So yeah, our Godfathers are DJs. So I'm definitely humbled to you know, be trying to do what I can to kind of still push this forward. So yeah.
Great to hear. Now, one of your other hats that you wear is being an educator. And being that we're speaking about hip hop, I know that's one of them. Tell us another part of being an educator that you put about.
I mean, yeah, it's interesting that I honestly didn't really have much of a background or even direction. I would say originally kind of in education, but I found just kind of just through the experiences with hip hop, found myself in spaces working with young people, and DJing. To a degree was kind of like what kind of led me to those spaces, which is kind of interesting. So, for my, I'll say beginnings with education, really started with, being introduced to this nonprofit organization here in DC called Words, Beats, and Life Incorporated. And back when the organization was really just, a project of this one cat, my man Mazi Mutafa, who's the CEO. But yeah, it was just kind of like a brainchild kind of project of his, and it started off with early on, just doing like one-off workshops or once a month workshops at a rec center somewhere in DC. And there was no office, there was no paid staff, it was just volunteering or whatnot. And props to him, he's pushed it through to now it's an organization. It's been around for more than 15 years and paid staff full of instructors and office space, and they cover anything from DJing to photography to spoken word to MCing to beat production, even chess and all this other stuff. So kind of started for me, it started with that, and being asked to just do like DJ workshops, and that also just kind of like through that, and working one of my colleagues, my man DJ RBI, who's based out here as well. Just even learning from him, just kind of like I actually learned more about hip hop in the process of learning how to be an instructor, teach people about DJing and do workshops. Because it's important to, I kind of really learned through my man, just making that connection of, the turntables are essentially kind of like, this is from where, what we know hip hop to be. This is kind of like, this represents the foundation of it. And even just kind of walking them through the history of like, Black music in America. I mean, the turntables have a big role in that, in the evolution of that. Definitely, more so in like beginning in like the late 70s, early 80s, when club culture started transforming into, the disco culture, and instead of there being live bands, people going to see live bands at parties and clubs, it became DJs, because it's like, hey, we can, instead of paying these 5-10 brothers to come play, we can pay this one person to play all these records, and they can play everything, but yeah, just kind of walking people through all of that, and I kind of really learn more about just the importance and the role of DJs and turntables and music, and but yeah, just those opportunities to kind of work with you through arts. And being in DC, that was definitely played a big role in that too. I kind of like over time noticed that, and I can't really speak for a lot of other cities. I'm not as well connected to everybody there, but definitely in DC, there's a big overlap between hip hop and education. There's been so many cats, legends, OGs around here, cats on the scene that have like been teachers, and principals, and have led their own education programs. So it's very common to know artists, local artists that also teach and work with youth. So these opportunities to like use music and hip hop to engage youth in education is pretty, is relatively common here in the DC area. So that kind of has really what has led me to just working with youth over the years. So I've stayed affiliated with Words, Beats, and Life since 18 years ago when I first met Brother Mazi Mutafa, and over that time I've been an instructor, I've been a site director, I've even been our chess instructor and helped out with our annual hip hop chess tournaments we call Bum Rush the Boards we used to do for a number of years. And I even at one point too, through just again connections through other artists and people in the scene, I taught for about a year or so at one of the high schools here as a full-time teacher, doing kind of an intro to sound engineering. So yeah, it's interesting to take a look back and say that DJing is what led me to education. It's just been kind of like, never would be able to predict that. I never saw myself as a teacher. Definitely growing up, that was the last profession I thought I'd ever try. But I've just kind of learned over time, like it's just also part of the culture. Education is definitely part of the culture, making sure that we're passing the information down and doing it the right way is important.
That's great, man. Now, with that organization, was that organization also part of, how would I say this? Getting you connected with the Next Level program?
So they I wouldn't say they were directly responsible, but it was because of my time with that organization that really prepared me for Next Level, and really, I would say even for the sake of my application, that played a huge role in me being considered for it. So yeah, the Next Level program is so I want to say my business partner with Shallon Jazz, my man Gerald Watson, he may have actually been the one to forward me the link for the program. I can't remember where he heard about it, or someone, I can't remember if it was him or my man Mazi from Words, Beats, and Life, but somebody shared it with me. And they're like, I think, you might be, you may want to try this out. Based on everything they were looking for criteria wise, I was like, hey, I think, who knows how many people are going to even try out for this or whatever. But at the least, like, I felt like based on what they were asking for, I had a really strong kind of resume to speak towards that, definitely working with youth and engaging them through hip hop and conflict resolution and all these other things. So yeah, just, it was kind of a shot in the dark for me. Tried it out, and then I think it was like might have been some random day of the week. It's like 3 a.m. I just happened to still be up and checking my emails, and I saw that they accepted me into the program. So I was that for me was a big moment. So yeah, I was blessed, very blessed and humbled to be accepted for that. It was their first year of doing the program. So
that's definitely a major milestone. and tell the people how that Next Level program segued into you traveling abroad.
Yeah. So it's a really cool program where they essentially select, I want to say each year, roughly like 25 to 30 different artists from around the country. And it's a combination of DJs, producers, MCs, and dancers. And essentially what they do in this program is produced and put together by some folks at the music department at UNC Chapel Hill and the U.S. State Department. So basically, essentially what they do is they break us up into little teams, and they send a different team to a different country for a couple weeks. And we're basically just tasked to engage people there through hip hop, do workshops, do performances, and we're basically there as hip hop diplomats, if you will. Much like what the U.S. government used to do back in like I want to say is like maybe like the 50s and the 60s, maybe before that, but like maybe the 40s and 50s when they used to send jazz artists to different countries to perform, and that was a form of like U.S. diplomacy to show that, hey, we're not all bad guys over here, but yeah, that's essentially similar kind of thing. And I was again humbled to be part of the very first, not only the first year they did the program, but also just my luck. I was part of the very first team that they sent out, and I was part of Team India. So they sent me and 3 other artists out to India for 3 weeks, and we were. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of work out there, but it was such a rewarding experience, and I wouldn't change it for anything. It was definitely great experiences to just engage other people from other spaces, see how they live, and see how we communicate and share things about ourselves through the music, through hip hop. So it was a really, really cool experience. Really cool experience.
And the thing that I love about music, and for us hip hop, is there's no language barrier.
Oh nah, man. Yeah.
So it doesn't matter what country you go to. The music it's in everybody. They understand it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And yeah.
Go ahead. No, I was going to say, when you first went over there, did you see any their hip hop, their influence with
I was going to say, so we were when we were there, we actually stayed in 2 different places. So we were in the first 2 weeks, we were in a town called Patna, Patna, India. And Patna is actually for India, it's like a town. It's not one of their larger cities, but it's a town. But also India has a huge population, so their towns are still like over 1 million people population wise. So Patna was like a little over 2 million people. And when we were there, that particular, because again, it wasn't like the major city, there wasn't really, hip hop. There definitely was a lack of a number of the elements and knowledge of those, so like break dancing wasn't as much, but a little bit because music and dance is really big in India. But the Bollywood kind of industry is huge, and if I'm not mistaken, I think I recall someone mentioning that most of the music you hear on the radio in India, and it's they have their own form of pop music. So there is that, in terms of production, like electronic sounding music, which, it is still a derivative of hip hop, in some of its different lineage, whatnot. But yeah, it was more like singing and dancing. And most of the songs you hear on the radio are actually from soundtracks. It's all it's mostly just soundtracks, what comes out in India. So there wasn't really, in that town, there really wasn't too many people, hardly anybody who was as familiar with, let's say, just emceeing in general, but more from, I guess, a U.S. hip hop perspective of emceeing, DJing as well. Not as much, but dancing, and more of again, your kind of pop form of hip hop dance. That was a bit more prevalent, and a lot of people were just, the mindset of people in terms of being comfortable and eager to dance and perform in front of people, it was very widespread. So with a lot of the youth we work with in Patna, we work with a lot of we work with the school called St. Karen, and a lot of their high school students. And I want to say it's about 60 students we work with. There's four of us working about 60 students. And the first time we even invited them to who wants to come up and dance, we have DJ Two Tones going to play some music. Who wants to come up and dance? And I mean, damn near everybody got up at the same time to try to cut. I mean, there was a line of almost everybody. There's nobody sitting down because everybody was in line waiting to get up on stage to dance. So that was kind of really cool to see, just that, you know, night and day from, you know, here. Like if I'm in high school in Southeast DC, you know, I'm like, yo, who wants to come up? You know, everybody's too cool for school, you know, like, you know, I'm good. So it's a whole different, you know, kind of vibe. But when we went our last week, we were in Calcutta. So it's more the big city. And there we actually did workshops at the US consulate. So they had like space for us to do workshops, and we were more so engaged with people that are more our age, 20s, 30s. And they were like, you know, there was a b-boy crew that was there in Calcutta. So like they're, you know, born and raised there, and they're all in the b-boy, you know, culture. And they even knew, you know, they were hip to like some international names, including some guys out of the DC area. So they were, I think they were playing. I think one of the first days we were like hanging out with them, they were playing a mixtape, and I hear this name. I was like, hey, was that DJ Fleg? And they're like, yeah, DJ Fleg. They're like, you know, he makes some of the best mixes. I was like, oh, yes, one of my homeboys from DC. And like their eyes is like, you know, DJ Fleg? Like it's like Michael Jordan, you know, it's almost like that kind of thing. And so, you know, and then I was running down just names, or they brought up names like, yeah, do you know such and such? And I was like, oh yeah, Toys, the breaker, the b-boy, and they're like, he's one of the best like Toys, you know. And I'm just like, yo, this is crazy. These are guys from back in DC, literally, that you all are huge fans of. So that was really cool to see that, you know, that connect. We did meet a few DJs, like one or two. MCs, not as many, but they still were hip though. They were still hip. So the folks in Calcutta, the folks that we kind of connected with, it was like their own community of cats who were like, you know, in hip hop. And it was almost like they were where they were at with everything in their own society. They were like in the 80s, like they were still yet to catch up, more so in terms of like how it was accepted, how many people were really into it. So it was still very niche. And, you know, here it is, we be on the street, and I'm just looking at this like big crew of these, you know, 20 young adults, and I'm just like, man, I feel like I'm looking at like real live Beat Street or something like going on right in front of me. Like these are the kids from, but the Indian version of it, you know, and they're like trying to find spaces to break dance because most of the clubs ain't trying to get down with these young folks coming in here break. Like, so it was like, yo, y'all are in your own kind of like version of what we went through, but we're just, 20, 30 years ahead of y'all right now. But it's still cool and refreshing to see that energy. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
I love to hear that. And the thing about what I like in stories like that is you saying that we're so many years ahead of them. When the music was out, it took a significant amount of time for them to hear the music, to see the videos, everything, the graffiti, everything. And now with technology, it's like it's in an instant. Yeah, everything's there. But I mean, it's great to see the foundation of hip hop in other countries flourishing like that.
Oh yeah. That it's there. Hip hop. I've definitely had the pleasure of seeing it, in different forms in different countries, and how people take to it, how they use it as their own form of expression. And yeah, I mean, it's cool. I mean, sometimes it's there are those times where it might be a little unsettling to see what influences come out of the U.S. that they gravitate toward more than others. But for the most part, I would say most instances where I've seen like hip hop outside of the U.S. and definitely in places that you don't think of, like India or Lebanon or something like that. A lot of times, like they're really using it for what what it has meant for a lot of us, which is also like it's a form of expression, it's a form of information sharing. It's street journalism, like it's telling their stories from where they're from and things like that. So that's always really cool to see people using it for that, their own true expression.
And while you were there, you also found some Indian music, some traditional stuff. And
Yeah.
how was it digging over there?
Oh man, it almost didn't happen. It almost didn't happen. Cause there's no record shops in India. There's no, like, you ask 10 people in the street, like, where I could find some vinyl records. Probably all 10 of them be like, either I don't know what you're talking about, or like, no, I have no idea. So records haven't been pressed up in India for who knows how many years, decades, and fortunately, I mean, while we were there, I put it out to one of the local folks that we were with, so some of the local artists that we connected with and performed with. I remember, asking one guy, I was like, yo, I'm looking, if possible, I'm trying to find some vinyl records just to say I got some from India, And so he, fortunately, he was like, well, yo, I know, he was like, I know this cat. His dad used to run a record shop way back in the day. And so he's like, and he still actually sells like used records at a market, open air market. So he's like, yeah, he really knows his stuff. And he's like, I'm gonna try to, try to go by there, something like that. So it was like maybe like one of my last 1 or 2 days in India. And so we go to this open air market, straight up open air market, half on the sidewalk, half on the street, kind of thing. And we get to this one block, and there's like 3 stalls next to one another, and they all had like 1 or 2 shelving units on the sidewalk, and they were like, and it was all old used records. So, started going over there, started like, looking through them. I had no idea what I'm looking at, of course. I'm just like looking at covers, and so my man was like, yo, forget these other guys. He's like, no, my man's stall is here. Let's go here. Don't worry about these other guys. Because I was actually about to buy something else. But so we go to his man's stall, and the dude comes to me. He's like, so what are you looking for? And I was just like, man, some just, I don't know, something maybe from like the 70s, some like jazzy, soulful, funky kind of stuff. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out. I'm hoping y'all having something like that. And he was like, all right. He was like, I think I know exactly what you're looking for. So he just randomly is like picking records out of different stacks. Like he knows exactly what he's getting and where he's going. Nothing's labeled. He just knows like, let me get this one, this one, this one. So he gets a little stack together. We go over to his little counter. He doesn't have like a small little, like, I would say storefront, but there's no door, and it's maybe like 10 feet deep. It's not really even that deep, but he has a little counter, and we go to the counter. He pulls down this little box, and like he takes the one side of the box off and the other side off, and they're basically speakers that he then plugs into this little portable turntable. So it's like this old Fisher Price turntable record player I'd never seen before. So I was like, yo, that's pretty cool. So hooks that up, and then he just pulls out the first record, drops the needle, and I was like, yo, this is crazy. What? I was like, what is it? He's just like, oh yeah, this is such and such. Now, mind you, I'm there, it's me and the producer that came along with me. So one of my teammates, this guy named Ko, was a producer out of San Fran Bay Area, and real cool cat, really dope beats. We had a great time together on the trip, just kind of like vibing out, him playing beats and me cutting and blending, to whatever he's doing. So we're there together trying to find, records. And so again, dude puts on the first record, and I'm just like, yo, it's crazy. So of course I'm like, I got dibs on that one. Let me get that one. But then of course I had to turn and be like, all right, so I guess since I took this one, you get first dibs on the next thing, that's played. Which of course was like some crazy the next one was just as good as the first one. And the guy just kept pulling out the records and almost like knowing exactly where to put it, place the needle to play something just really dope. I was like, yo, what is it? So turns out, when I'm also looking at the prices, and the prices aren't, as cheap as I thought they would be. Like everything else in India was, compared to American dollar, like everything was cheap. Everything was really, really cheap. But those records were the most expensive thing I spent money on. I mean, I even bought like clothes for the missus and jewelry and stuff. I think the records per record cost more than almost, you know, any other individual item. But basically he was like, look, he's like, I got guys who like reach out to me online from Europe and Australia, and they look for these records. They're very rare records. And he's like, and I know the value of what I have. He's like, so some of these records I sell for like €100 each, which translates to about 110, 115 US dollars per record, And these are records that like none of them are clean. They look as dusty as you would imagine a record would be if it spends most of the time on the street, on the sidewalk in the street. So they're all dusty, dirtied up, but like, yeah, not everything he played for us was at value online. If you like really researched it, everything probably was at least €75 on per record. So he hooked us up, a little bit on the price. It still wasn't super cheap, but I could afford about 8 to 9 records. That's about as much I could afford. But yeah, it was really some really cool stuff in there, and that was really, out of everything that I took back with me, that was what I was just like the happiest to bring back home. Where I found some Indian records. I doubt I'll find any of these or see any of these back here in the States, probably until I mess around and go to one of the homies' cribs who's a collector, and he'll be like, oh yeah, I got a copy of that. But yeah, I probably wouldn't find it on my own, just digging just anywhere. So, and I wouldn't even know to look for it too. Yeah, it's some crazy sounding stuff on there.
Crazy. And we fast forward to July 2021.
Yeah.
And he created content from India.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Thanks for getting that record, man. Yes. Yeah, man. Yeah. So that
just great experience all around.
Yeah. I the thing about it was when I came home with those records, like I said earlier, like I dabbled a little bit with beats and stuff at a certain point. I still, I don't know why, I still keep my MPC, somewhere kind of handy, even though it's been collecting dust for a minute now. But listening to the records and at least having that experience of sampling and doing beats and stuff, I knew that I had like a lot of like really cool stuff and sounds to potentially sample from. But I'm just not in the producer mode to where like I would be able to really crank out, even fast enough, something to do anything with. I'd be working on this for like 15 years, So I decided, I was like, hey, instead of me just sitting on this stuff, maybe this is a good opportunity to like actually try to do a project, an official project, that I can kind of like, do some of the string pulling for. So basically I was like, what I'll do is I'll reach out to, different producers that I know and have known and worked with for years, and people that I'm, not only friends with, but I'm still, at the end of the day, I'm a fan of their work. And so I decided to, hand select which song I'm going to send them, and send a different song to different producers and ask them, hey, I'd love to see what you could do sampling from this record, and that's pretty much, I basically called in a whole lot of favors. I was just humbled, honestly, like really, really humbled that Cash was just like, yo, I'm down. Let's see what can happen with this. So I ended up basically getting enough music back so what you just held up in your hands, that's actually probably about half of what I got back. So there's still a whole second album worth of stuff sitting there that I'm trying to piece together. But it really was just more so I wanted to do, the goal was more of like a compilation, more of like a production compilation, just to feature just the work of this really cool producers. And as it was kind of coming together, I still, knew I wanted to have a few with some guest appearances here and there just to kind of mix it up a little bit. But it just kind of that started snowballing a little bit. So I ended up, I think what was going to be just maybe 2 or 3 guest features ended up being like half. Every other track has some guest features, which is cool because it has a nice energy to it, which I really dig. And I feel like it helps it, not feel like a traditional just straight instrumental project, but a nice just kind of mix of, hearing some lyrics here and there, and then just having the beats just kind of take you somewhere and kind of going back and forth. So yeah, that's how Contraband from India, how all that came together. Just start with some dirty old records from India.
Yeah, man. I mean, every time I played, before I received the vinyl and the mixtape.
Oh yeah.
Before that came in, I listened to the digital on my phone with my headphones on all the time, so I have it on repeat. Just let it rock.
Word, appreciate it, man. Yeah, man. I'm just humbled to had all those folks just kind of be down to come together and just make some magic in their own kind of way. So yeah,
it's great, man. And last time I checked, there was just 5 left. 5 vinyl left online. You might have more in the stash, but
yeah. There's more coming. So I got like 5 more. I think 4 or 5 more copies left. Just through my Bandcamp, but I'm also working with this company, Get On Down Records.
Oh, okay.
So they're actually my main, helping me get it out. But they actually are selling it on their site, and actually as of I think next week, starting on the 20th, it will then actually now be available on a number of other retail sites and brick and mortar shops around the world. So
nice.
So yeah, again, just humbled. I'm just happy, it means the world to me to be able to walk into a record shop and see my record there.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the bucket list, thing checked off for me finally with this one.
That's great.
Yeah,
definitely. Now tell us about these producers, because I'm a fan of pretty much everybody you have on here.
Oh yeah.
So what was your process of picking who was on here? And second part of that question, the importance of having DMV artists on here.
Yeah. So again, this was more of like, again, just folks that I've been rubbing elbows with for years, and cats that most of the folks on there are definitely people I've been been cool with for a number of years here in the DMV area. Whether it's people like Uptown XO to my man YU, my brother Joe D was part of this group Dirty Water. My man Praise, who's just ridiculous with the beats.
Yeah.
Godzilla, I DJ for them so many times, and those are
really
like family, man. So to the brother Substantial, so the list, like, I feel like this goes on, and then it I would say in terms of like the themes of some of the songs and everything like that, and even for the most part, like even who's on some of the records, those weren't all that intentional to begin with. I'll say, like, for example, so I reached out to Kev, the homie Kev Brown, that's been the homie for a minute too, and of course, like, been a big fan of his work. Early on, like, some of the first artists in the DC area that I got hip to and became like an instant fan of was a Low Budget Crew, and that's like Kev Brown, Critically Acclaimed, my man DJ Roddy Rod, and all these other folks, Odyssey. So yeah, for me, it was just like, all right, Kev's down, and then, he flipped this beat, and it's funny because I think he posted it on his IG right after he made the beat, And it's before I even heard it. So I actually started hearing about it from other people. Um, and and I was just like, all right, that's already a great sign. You know, people were like, yo, this beat Kev did that, you know, he said it's for you. And I was like, okay, word. And so when I finally, you know, connected with him again, he was like, yo, got the joint done. He's like, but I'm actually gonna put my man Hassan Mackey up on here to rhyme. And I was just like, do what you do, brother. Just you know, like I already know Hassan Mackey is vicious. Like, yeah, do what you do, you know. So that one was that just, you know, worked out perfect. Like once I got it back to, I was just like, yo, this is just the perfect song, top to bottom. Like, you know, it's classic already. Some of the other songs were, yeah, just kind of like either in the process they kind of came together, like the Diamond D track. You know, that was I was very humbled to get that. So the way that even worked out too is Diamond D was also was also part of the Next Level program that first year. So we actually met in orientation. So we had orientation in DC before they started sending the teams off, and it's cool because with the Next Level program, every year you'll notice within their cohort of artists, they always, which is really dope, they always manage to like get 2 to 3 like OGs in the game that are there on the trip. So like I remember going to one of the orientations for, you know, one of the later years, and like Medusa from Cali was there. I think they've had Lord Finesse in one of the years. Wow. I mean, yeah, it's just like random people, you know. So it's just like, yo, this is, you know, it's really dope that they're doing this. So our first year, the two main OGs in the room were Diamond D and the OG Pop Master Fable from Rocksteady. Wow. And yeah, so he was there. So that was just, even just being around them and just soaking up, you know, stories and all that was just like, yo, I'm good, you know, I'm kid in the candy store. So so I got a chance to, like, you know, connect with Diamond again 1 or 2 other times after that, and so, you know, I had a feeling, I was like, all right, you know, I think the ask is not going to be too impossible, because he also has a point of reference from where I'm coming from with the project too. But even with that, you know, that track, once I heard it, I was like, all right, this might be the track where I can do the posse cut thing and have a handful of cats. So let me see if I can work this out. So I was reaching out to my man Asheru, been a homie too for a minute, and you know, he's another giant from the area, who was also part of the Next Level program that first year too. I was a little upset, that we weren't picked to go on the same trip, because during that time I was DJing for him regularly as well at his shows. So Next Level folks just weren't hip to that part. And I told them during orientation, they were like, oh yeah, had we known, we would have paired y'all together, no question. But yeah, reached out to him, got my man Joe D, and then YU, and then the icing on the cake was Prince Poe for that one. And I've been a big, you know, and you only hear this from heads, man. You know, I'm a head, man. So I'm not going to give you like the obvious, like, oh yeah, I think, you know, Jay-Z is the greatest of all time, and, you know, this and that, or, you know, I'm not going to give you the super obvious cats when it comes to personal favorites, just because, yeah, that's my taste. But Prince Poe has been one of my like personal favorite MCs just over the lineage of like his career, in terms of just like his flow, his delivery. Like, I think he has one of the most soulful kind of cadences, funky soulful kind of cadences, you know, and even personally too, when I go back and hear some of the old Organized Confusion stuff, like I know Pharaoh, you know, a lot of people, you know, Pharaoh is way up there for a lot of people, but there are definitely songs where I feel like Prince, you know, was the better of the two on certain, you know, which I loved about that. They both shine, but I feel like he definitely was, yeah, when you got a guy like Pharaoh Monch in the room, it's hard to still keep a spotlight on the other cat too. So I feel like, you know, he's one of those unsung kind of cats. So I randomly ran into the brother. We were on a bus together from New York to DC. And when the ride, I mean, and I noticed he was sitting across from me, like at the beginning of the bus ride. I was like, oh, it's Prince Bo, and I'm thinking, I'm the only one here, like geeked out, like it's Prince Bo, But he was mad cool. Like at the end, when the trip was over, like I, went up to him, rapped with him real quick. He was real cool, and I just, tried to stay in touch. So, I just kind of reached out on the humble for this one, and he was down, which was really cool. So, for me, a lot of this was really, as I was kind of getting after I got the production, the part of like curating what MCs and what guests to be on certain songs is really where I was able to kind of really pull together certain elements that I was happy and just gracious to be able to like represent on the project. So, from having Prince Po, again, one of my personal favorites, that to one of the tracks on there, Samosa, Coast of the Nosa from my man Praise, who's heavy on the beats. But for that one, when I heard it, I know he had worked with Godzilla a number of times as well. So and the brothers, they've put out a lot of dope stuff, but it's it's been a bit of a hiatus for them, past 1 or 2 years. So I felt like this was a good chance to like get them back on something, remind cats, who these heavyweights are, and then bringing in my man Substantial, and that track right there kind of became, at least representing the area. That was like, hey, these are the PG Maryland cats, like when we talk DMV, like it ain't just DC, like there's a lot of the heavy hitters on the Maryland side too, and PG as a county, that's one of those areas that I think deservingly so needs to be kind of recognized even more. Whether you're talking about the ballers from out there, your Durants to all these other cats to, but even on the music front, like there's a lot of heavy hitters out in PG County, and those dudes have definitely repped the county pretty well over the years. So having that was a nice little rep for that part of the area. And then when it came to the Curry Out track, that was just kind of a perfect moment in time, bringing those cats together. There's definitely been a nice heavy kind of resurgence and movement going on here in DC in terms of the rap scene. And with cats like Uptown XO, he had about a year and a half ago, he dropped his first Culture Over Corporate album, completely produced by my man Drew Dave, who is unsung, like
beast, man.
So that again, I was like, Drew, hey, I love to have you on here. And he's such a humble dude, and he's not yet, getting the shine yet that I feel like he deserves. Like he's done a handful of really dope projects. His instrumental projects are crazy to listen to, but
caught my attention.
Yeah, man. So he's been putting in some work, and I think he's not getting enough of that, the phone calls yet. But yeah, once I had that track, and I'd actually been sitting on that track for a handful of years. And it wasn't until XO had his album release party for Culture Over Corporate, and I was there. And also in the room was my man Tim Hicks. He also goes now he goes by Let the Dirt Say Amen.
Say amen.
Ooh. And yeah, dude. So he had just dropped, months before that, he dropped Bullets, which I tell people, like, Bullets and Culture Over Corporate, definitely in terms of recent years, two of the best projects that come out of DC in terms of DC hip hop. But in my opinion, even from the time I've been in DC, top 10 easy, arguably top 5. And I put those projects up there even with the Diamond District album. Like that's how much I in my opinion, those albums hit that hard, and classics, definitely DC classics. But again, it was just that right time and space. I'd been actually building with Tim a lot around the time he was putting the album out. And here we are in the room, and I'm watching XO do his thing. Drew Dave is DJing for him. Tim is in the room, and I'm sitting there. I'm thinking, like, so that Drew Dave beat that I've been sitting on. Yeah, so let's let's play up this DC thing a little bit more. Let me get Tim, who just dropped the crazy classic. Let me get XO, who just dropped the crazy classic. And let's put this let's get this DC energy, let's keep it rolling. So they were down, and I even intentionally I was like, yo, not only would I love y'all both on this, but I want to make sure we do this, approach this the right way. So instead of like you sending me a verse and then you sending me, like, if y'all down, let's meet up. I'd love for y'all to like do some back and forth and all that. So they were down, met up, banged out the verses in like an hour or so. And I was just sitting there at the table, just, a few minutes later, they were like, all right, I think I got something. And one of them did like 2 lines, the other did 2 or 3 lines, and then they just kept building off of it. So I was like, yo, this is exactly what I wanted, right? I wanted some of that, kind of cohesion going on. And then I was like, yeah, for the hook, let me get somebody else. Let's tie this all together. So I reached out to Kenilworth Katrina. Big fan of hers. She's been grinding it out on the scene for a minute now, and she is so incredibly talented. Phenomenal. But I just remember seeing her perform, I think about a year before that. And I had heard of her before then too, but I was at a show, your man Joe Claire used to be, Rap City, all that, Rap City. DC, so Joe Claire had an album release party. Joe Claire, when he turned 50, released his first hip hop album where he did all the beats and he's doing all the rhyming. And so I was humbled to be there DJing for him, and he had Nonchalant come and open up and do something. So she's still in DC area too. And she had a song that she was performing with, it was herself, my sis, who I ain't seen in forever, Rod the MC, and then also Kenilworth Katrina. And Katrina was there. And when she did her verse, I mean, I was just like, yo, no disrespect to Joe or anybody else, there's nobody who's going to outperform this verse tonight. Like, the energy that I was just like, yo, she is so dope. So I was like, I gotta reach out, gotta see if this could work. And she was just real cool. She, she's a fan of XO as well, and she knows Tim. She's worked with him before. So she came in, she had 3 different versions of the hook. When she came to the studio, she recorded all 3. And because they were so good, I was like, yo, I don't want to like waste anything. So I ended up splicing the hook she did for the hook. So even when the song like was first released, that was her first time hearing it, that version. But it just came together so well, man. And that was another one. It was like, yo, I'm able to give a nod to DC and just straight up DC on this one too. So again, as the lyrics and verses came together for some of the songs, it also helped me to like capture certain things that that are dear to me. Kind of through the album. So, my time in DC and repping DC, to my PG Maryland brothers. And in the first track, really, for me, really brought it home. First track on the album is called Buddhist on Beatty's Ford. And that's a nod to my hometown, Charlotte, North Carolina. So everybody on that track, the producer of the track and myself, we all, I'm born and raised in Charlotte. And all of them have lived in Charlotte as well at some point in time. The producer still lives there, my man, the mighty DR. That one was just, and we're actually in about a week or so about to drop the video for that one. So we actually went, took a road trip down to Charlotte, shot some things down there. And man, this, again, I never planned on that, but once I got the beat and, I felt like, yo, let me again call in some favors. Jay Cyanide, it's the homie, been DJing for him for a minute. And then Superstition is definitely one of the, I would say, real talk. He is like the MC from Charlotte, North Carolina, one of the best MCs ever. Top 3 from my hometown. I can say that without hesitating. Shouts out to other people like Luke doing this thing, and Ruben Vincent coming out of Charlotte as well. Like, we got some young cats, but like Superstition, you know, that was one of the first cats you actually heard local and got a chance to be on the radio back in the day. That was not
dope.
very common. But he also put in his work with like Little Brother. You know, he's featured on there. Gangsta Grill's mixtape and other projects. So yeah, I had to get that dude on there, you know, make it official. So yeah, so it's all of this whole project, man, has really been, like I said, it's just been a blessing, man. And, you know, and I'm definitely humbled to, you know, not only who was able to be on it, but even just how I was able to shape up and really touch on these things, man. Meant a lot for me.
Yeah, that's great, man. Definitely. And shout out to Uptown XO and Priest the Nomad, who we had on HHDG Media, the podcast as well.
Yeah, Big Priest.
Yeah, man.
That's the dude right there, man. Actually, he was one of the first DC area cats that I ever saw in person. And it wasn't even in DC. It was actually they were doing the Rhyme Deferred play back in the day, and they were down in North Carolina at the Black Theater Festival. And I caught them, and yeah, Priest was one of the first cats from here that I ever saw and you know, got hip to. So yeah, that's definitely the OG, you know, one of my OGs here.
Yeah. Now you mentioned Reuben Vincent, and I just started listening to him maybe a month before he dropped Myers Park.
Okay. Yes.
And I like to do my digging, so I found out how long he actually. It was like maybe like a year. I think it was about 2 years that he was already affiliated with Ninth Wonder, but he was perfecting his craft, and Ninth, you know, let him grow and, you know, and show him the little ropes and everything. But that debut album, man, oh my goodness,
dude.
And and he's got a new track out now because he's about to drop another album.
Yeah. I'm happy he's finally getting something else. Yeah, it's his time now. It is definitely his time, and yeah, that's just, again, it's great. It's a long time coming. You know, it's great to see some cats from you know, from there kind of get out there and hey, you know, to be honest too, like I know it ain't always my cup of tea, but you know, props even to like people like the Baby. It's great to see somebody even on that level that is unapologetically representing Charlotte, you know, with the jerseys and everything, like, and in the verses, like, that's something we have not had for a long time. I mean, you know, we could barely claim Jodeci, even though they from our area, you know, neck of the woods. You know, most people thought they're from New York or LA, you know, so but nah, shouts out to cats like that, and you know, it's just great to see this, you know, this kind of newer generation, you know, coming out of there, and I never would have thought I heard, you know, somebody making noise with the project called Myers Park. That was like one of the high schools in town that I definitely would not have gone to. But yeah, you know, I got people who went to Myers Park, and but it's kind of cool just even hearing that, man. So that's what's up. That's what's up. Yeah, looking forward to what this new project he's about to put out.
Yeah, that first track, was it State of Mind?
Yeah.
The way they flipped it.
I mean, and they, you know, I already know, like, his production is going to be just fine. Like Soul Council. I mean, he's E Jones and Crisis is going to be on it. Like, he's good. If he mess around, get a Notch beat too, you know.
Yeah.
He's in good hands. He's in real good hands.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Now, before we talk on Shaolin Jazz, tell us some of your favorite movies.
Favorite now is his favorite movies that, you know, that I've scored, or favorite movies is in general?
Both.
All right. Well, I'll say, even though this is definitely not a movie that would be in the vein of what we do with the Shaolin Jazz stuff, I'll say I think one of the greatest films made, you know, around, I guess, in our generation. I still think X, man, Malcolm X, that portrayal, you know, Denzel, and, you know, and I know the storyline wasn't to everybody's liking in terms of what parts of X's, you know, life to focus on, and that's, I hate to say that's Hollywood, but that's part of it. They want the juicy stuff, but
Yeah.
But just the brother's portrayal, like there's no one. I don't think there's a better portrayal of a real life, person that's been done better than Denzel's portrayal of Malcolm X. I mean, from that moment on, any other time anybody ever tried to play Malcolm X in a movie, just you could not help but to compare, like, well, how was it the Denzel, or even picturing Malcolm X. I remember, like, for years after that movie, even just picturing when the name Malcolm X would come up, like, it was hard not to picture
That's
Denzel.
the first thing you think of.
Yeah, you see that. Yeah, it's just so iconic. So, that definitely is always up there for me. But other films, man, I'm definitely always in the comedies or action stuff. So I think Coming to America is like the greatest comedy movie ever made. Close up there with Harlem Nights. You can go back and forth on those, but stuff like that. And then I'm always, like a lot of cats, fan of like Bruce Lee and some of those older films. Superfly's my favorite movie soundtrack, so I got love for that movie. And I love how low budget it was too. So laughing at the chords falling in the scene real quick and all that good stuff. I love that. Poor music editing and all that. Yeah, I love that. But those, I like a little range, but yeah, more so comedies and action, man. I'm about that all day.
Okay. So with Challenge Jazz, it's two of you. It's you and Gerald Watson.
Yeah.
How long have the two of you known each other?
So Gerald and I, we go back about 2003, maybe about 2003. And it was actually just a kind of a chance meeting. A good close friend of mine by the name of Some Kid. We're part of a clique called the Vinyl Junkie Clique, VJC, and Some for a number of years was doing kind of freelance work for this publication, Frank 151, and they had offices. They were really based out in New York. They had some other locations here and there, but I was visiting in New York, and I was in the office, and he mentioned, he's like, "Yo, there's this cat I haven't really met before, but I've talked with him on the phone, maybe on a few occasions. He handles like distribution for us and promo for us out in like the DC area, and he's like, I think he'd be a good cat for you to meet." And some has had this. I bring this up from time to time. He has had this ability to pair me with people that I have like lifelong, like, they become, very close to me. It's almost like he curates people to match up with me very well. So, so Gerald was a great example one. And it was also probably just off of instinct, but he's like, again, I don't know the dude but so well, but, just from talking to him over the phone, sounds like he's into some cool stuff. I think y'all should meet. So upon coming back to DC after that trip, I got, Gerald's info, he got mine, and I was like, I reached out, and I think he was working some day job out in Georgetown at a store or something. And I was like, well, hey, I want to at least drop off a little mix CD or mixtape, I did recently or whatnot, just so you can hear, some of the stuff I'm working on. And Gerald actually, I think even before listening to it, I don't even know if I know he listened to it eventually, but even before listening to it, even when we met and I was just handing him the CD, he was like, "Yo, I'm doing this little pop-up art thing at this spot in downtown, kind of low key, but we usually have like a DJ spinning and just folks checking out some of this artwork or whatnot." And he was like, "And a cat that I was normally spinning at some of them, I think he had maybe moved to New York or whatever." So I was like, "Well, yo, I'm down. I'm down. Next one you got or whatnot." And he's like, "Cool." So he even locked me in before even hearing me DJ. And just from that first event together, like the rest was history. Like Gerald's into the same stuff I'm into, you know, music wise, everything. So we just hit it off, and then we just started like doing these events together, and we started doing like really taking the art stuff kind of even further. So we started doing these like monthly art exhibition, pop-up art exhibition events at like a bar lounge spot in DC. And we did that for like a good 4 or 5 years straight every month. And so we had a different visual artist presenting stuff. And so we just, over the years, we just organically just kind of worked together. And that was always like my go-to guy, and vice versa. Like we just always like, all right, let's, maybe let's maybe do this a couple months from now, maybe at this spot, or maybe what do you think about doing this? So we always just kind of like we're kind of working together on stuff. And then just fast forward to like 2010, Gerald was doing his own little series that he called the Classics, and the Classics were basically like an album cover art exhibition. And so what he did was for each one, it was each night it was a different genre. So like one night was hip hop, and so he actually came by my spot, and I let him go through my record collection, and he pulled out maybe like 60, 70 different album covers. And basically like he would put the album covers up on the wall at this lounge, and that was like the art, exhibition for the night. And so so at each one you would have like also have somebody DJ whatever the genre is. So he did this a few nights, and then when he got to jazz, when he got to the genre of jazz music, he reached out to me about we had been also doing like or he had been reaching out to me about doing little mixes to go along with each event. So when he did the hip hop one, I did a little hip hop mix. He did one for rock and for reggae. But when he got to jazz, he asked me he basically got the idea from this designer named Logan Mills Walters. He interviewed this designer who basically did this really cool graphic design series called Wu Note. And basically what he did was he flipped Wu-Tang album covers and gave him like a Blue Note jazz album cover look to it. And so Gerald had interviewed him just to get this additional content for this event. And, when he asked, he's like, and the dude mentioned something about like, I also did an album cover for somebody who did this Wu-Tang Beatles mix or whatnot. And so Gerald asked, he was like, well, has anybody done like a Wu-Tang jazz mix that you know of? And he was like, no, he's like, not that I know of, but if one existed, I'd be down to do the cover for it. So light bulb goes off. Gerald reaches out to me and he's like, yo, what do you think about doing a mix with jazz and Wu-Tang? And I was like, yo, I have no idea what that would be, but the concept sounds dope. Like, so I'm give me a minute. Let me see what I can do. So even though these were supposed to be for the events and like done before each event to help promote it, like I want to say 2 weeks after the event even came and went, I hit Gerald back. I was like, all right, I got one song just to start off with. And I think the first song was my kind of reinterpretation of Cream. And so I sent him that, and he was like, okay. He was like, I see how deep you're going with this. So he's like, take all the time you need, to finish it up. And yeah, like, he's like, I can tell this is going to be special. So 5 months later, finished the whole mix, and that was our first project, Shallon Jazz project. We called it Shallon Jazz, the 37th Chamber mixtape. And yeah, we didn't really have plans beyond just, hey, we got a mixtape, but it was just because of our relationship of working together over the years and just things that we naturally would do for like events and putting things out. We just, started adding stuff. We're like, all right, well, let's do, some listening parties. Let's do one in New York and DC and Philly, since we have connections there. And we can maybe, possibly get, some drinks, and stuff like that and find a venue. So we basically, a lot of the stuff we were able to kind of easily do just from connections we had and stuff we'd done before. And like the listening parties were like crazy. I did not see that, like the DC one, we easily had like 200 people in the space packed in there. And I mean, had a great time. The New York one, by the time we got to New York, NPR on their website, in the jazz section of their website, did a post and a little article about the mixtape. So like half the people who showed up were like, yo, saw the thing on NPR, and So that was packed in New York, and that was, you know, crazy. In Philly, we did an event attached to the first annual Black Star Film Festival. So we actually did their kickoff night for like their very first year of the Black Star Film Festival. And yeah, so like we're like, all right, so we're doing these events, and then we had some artwork done inspired by the music and everything. So we just started just adding stuff organically, and it actually has snowballed somehow from that mixtape to like now we do like a range of engagements that around hip hop and jazz and martial arts, and we've done lectures at universities and colleges, and we've done, you know, these movie screening events at Kennedy Center and all these other places. But it literally all just started from, hey, what do you think about jazz and Wu-Tang on a mixtape? So that's that, you know, it's been a crazy kind of ride even off of that. And this year actually marks our 10-year anniversary of Shaolin Jazz. So yeah, who would have known? Jazz and Wu-Tang.
And the great thing about it is pick the right instrumentals to go over these movies.
Oh yeah. The movie thing was interesting because we I want to say that came along maybe like year 2 or 3 for us doing Shaolin Jazz stuff. You know, we were, I think at that point we I think dropped another like 1 or 2 little mixtapes, and we had started like doing these lectures at colleges and universities, and I can't remember how the conversation started, but I think just one night I was talking with Gerald, and I was like, yo man, what do you think about, you know, like us doing movies, you know? And I was like, because we have both, and, you know, I'm sure, you know, a lot of people have been to like lounges and clubs where you'll see like on a big screen or TVs, they're playing movies, but they're just doing it as a visual to go along with the night. You know, it has nothing to do with the music or whatever. And so I was like, yo man, what if what if the DJ was actually playing to the movie? You know, I was like something random. I was like, yeah, but what if they actually played to the movie? Like I'm always seeing cool little old vintage movies being played in these clubs and lounges or whatever, and it's cool to see the visuals, but yeah, like what if, you know, kind of thing. And so I kind of pushed him enough that I was like, yo, if you're down, man, let's give it a try. You know, we actually, there was an event that was going on. A friend of ours named Rissy Cat, she was doing some event one night and had a space, and we kind of told her about the concept, and she was like, yo, if y'all want to try it out here, cool. So it was like this one night back in 2013, I think it was, and I want to say the first movie we tried was 3 the Hard Way with Fred Williamson and who's your boy, Black Belt Jones, all them, yeah, all them cats. But yeah, we did it. We started with the blaxploitation flick, and when we were done, we just kind of like, yo, this might be something right here, you know. And it was just fun too. It was just like taking these older films, and we just felt, after a while we just like, yo, let's just do old school kung fu flicks. So it just really started from there, and then, you know, now that thing is like, that now has become our most prominent thing now, the Can I Kick It movies. And yeah, going from just a cool idea to, yeah, it's weird to say, but a cool idea to the Kennedy Center. That's basically what's you know, happened with this bad boy. So yeah, man, it's been a lot of fun doing those movies, man. There's just so much to play with there, and music and sounds and drops, and yeah, we just have a lot of fun with that, and you know, it obviously seems like a lot of people do as well. So that one's been doing pretty well for us.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's great, and I'm sure when you're prepping, you're having a good time as well.
Most of the time, yeah, most of that. I mean, it can be.
You got so much to pick from.
Yeah, it is. It's. I mean, for me now, the tough part. So like this last, you know, we just here in DC, we just finished our our summer outdoor series in downtown DC, and this is where we actually have a chance to do it on a big screen outdoors. Have like a few hundred people in attendance, and we're basically doing a movie every week. It was like 10 weeks in a row, every Tuesday, and then just to kind of make things a little extra in July, in addition to those every Tuesday night movies, we also did a 3-week series, virtual series with the Smithsonian Museum of Asian Art for their Made in Hong Kong Film Festival. So we were also doing, it was a 3-week span where every Friday night we had a virtual movie as well. So there's a good span of time within 3.5 weeks, basically doing like 7 movies back to back to back to back. So that, that could be a little strenuous time wise or whatnot. And it gets a little tricky because, we've been, and it's hard to believe, man, but we've been, we started doing the Can I Kick It concept back in 2013. And to date, we've screened and I've basically live scored over 75 different movie titles. So the tricky part is not using the same music all the time for like different movies. So I try my best not to reuse songs that I've already used in certain movies, because sometimes we never know if we're going to show that movie again, and I don't want people to be like, hey, wait, didn't you use the follow the know the ledge like in that last movie, or so it now the tough part is like most of the songs I would think of normally or naturally, I'm like, oh, I already used that, I used that in End of the Dragon, or I used that for The Raid, or Predator, whatever. So it's a challenge, but then in the moment, man, once I'm thick in it, there's definitely still plenty of moments in there where like I find something or I pull a record or song matching with the scene, and I'm just like, oh, this is so beautiful the way this fits. Like people want to geek out, when I play this, and they'll instantly get what's going on, and so for me, those are the moments I look forward to the most. Like when people are watching it and when a song or sound comes on and they instantly get like, oh, I know exactly why you're playing this right now. Like, oh, that's good. Or like, oh, that's funny that you're playing this right here when this happens in the movie. So those are the moments I live for when we do these, man, when people just like really react off of like the selection and the timing of it and all that good stuff. So it is a lot of fun. Yeah. Once I get in the thick of it. But there's a lot of late nights, a lot of days where I'm cramming it in right to the final hour, but it's fun, man. I really do enjoy it.
Great. Now, with the picking the movies, is that you find that harder than selecting what music to use?
Nah, the movies are that's another fun part too, because it's my partner and I, Gerald, we'll just get on the phone and then we'll just we'll have fun just kind of like going through old titles or trying to really like think about the different movies we can do, because sometimes we do have we try to set themes from time to time as well. So like for instance, the summer series that we just finished for DC was an all sci-fi future kind of theme. So that was kind of new for us in terms of those types of movies. But it was fun just thinking, trying to brainstorm on like, okay, so, aliens, we got to do aliens. Or what about, Mad Max? We got to do a Mad Max one. Let's throw in the Star Wars. Let's do a Star Trek. So it's fun. That part is a lot of fun too. I mean, there are times where it may, I would say it's never not fun, but there are times too when we have been like invited to do, let's say, an outdoor screening in another city or whatnot, and of course we got to make sure that most of what we do when we're doing outdoor movies is most cases family friendly. So sometimes we have had to like consider movies that we never really wanted to do, but we still find a happy medium. So like, I don't think we ever really considered, we may have tossed up the idea of doing the Karate Kid, the original one, but we ended up doing that one year because, it was a good family friendly kind of flick. But it is also fun too when we get a chance to do like when we're indoors. And, and usually if we're indoors, it's we can have more flexibility in terms of like, all right, we can do this R-rated film and not worry about it, and not have to censor anything. But yeah, that part is fun too. I mean, sometimes though we do get ahead of ourselves at times. There have been a few times where we picked a movie, didn't even bother to watch it again or whatever, and then here's the week of, and I'm looking at it and I'm like, oh my gosh, why did we pick this? Like, this moves so slow. Or like, oh, I might. There've been a few times I called Gerald like the week of, like, man, I don't know about this one, man. Like, damn, I should have watched this bad boy before we agreed to do this. So there's been a few of those, but it always we find a way to make it work. I don't think there's ever been a time where there might have been one time where we like had a film on schedule and then like I watched it a week before and I was like, can't do this. let's change it up real quick. Let's just last minute change it up. Sorry, we're not doing this movie. No. So there's a few times. One time that happened. I can't remember what the movie was, but it's just like, oh, it moves so bad, or the quality is so bad. When these older kung fu flicks. But yeah, the fun part is when we can look at like cult classic movies and stuff like that to do as well. So as much as I enjoyed the martial arts films, like I've been probably more excited to do stuff like Predator and Running Man and some of the Steven Seagal films and the Van Damme films. Like those to me are a lot of fun because again, they're cult classics. A lot of us, they were the big hit action movies back in the 80s, early 90s. But so much time has gone on since then. It's fun to go back and look at them and be like, yo, that, I can't believe we took that seriously, or like, comparing the writing and all that stuff. It's funny because, you don't really take it as seriously anymore now, and you can kind of laugh at a lot of it too. So I love going back to those older films, man. Those are a lot of fun. A lot of fun.
I enjoy when you did Ninja Scroll.
Ah, yeah, the anime ones, man. Those are cool too. Those are real cool, man. Ninja Scrolls is definitely, that was definitely a good one. Yeah, and that's the cool thing too about just I have to say, like, working with the partner I got, man. Gerald and I, again, we similar wavelengths in terms of stuff that we like and that we're into. From hip hop to like, again, kung fu flicks and even the anime stuff. Like when we first started doing this, and back when we were like in our first year, and we were doing this like monthly at a space here in DC. We knew ahead of time. We're like, yo, let's make sure we do like if we say martial arts, and this is something we're big on too. Like we want to make sure we're always as inclusive of everything, so that I'm definitely as a DJ. I don't know if it's a DJ thing or just how I am. Like I don't like to leave open room for somebody to come behind us and criticize on things that we could have avoided. Like, oh, y'all said y'all doing this, but y'all missed all of this other stuff. Or you didn't even acknowledge all of this. And, and that is important too, when you're talking about things and from a historical standpoint too. You want to make sure that you're not, you don't overgeneralize or like omit things that if you really pay attention to, you can still include or find ways to include. So, so when it comes to even saying like, yo, we're doing martial arts films, we take a step back and we're like, well, hey, keep in mind, martial arts is incorporated in pretty much most of 80% of all the action films that we know of even today. It might not be dressed up as like a kung fu flick, but when we talk about Born Identity, like their fighting style, that's a form of martial arts. That's not just a roadhouse brawl of them just swinging punches. Like no, that's Krav Maga. That is a style of martial arts. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. It's not just some random Black Panther. Like they're doing variations of capoeira and stuff like that. Like that's martial arts right there. So. So we wanted to make sure that like when we say that, we are very intentional in terms of like the world of martial arts. So that even includes, we're like, yo, let's, in our first year, we're like, yo, let's throw an anime film in there every, you know, at least once a year, because there's that big crossover between martial arts and anime. And yeah, we talk about films like Ninja Scroll, Fist of the North Star, Afro Samurai. I think Afro Samurai was the very first anime film we did. And then, you know, we went off the deep end a little bit. We did Akira before as well. Not really martial arts in there, but, you know, that's by that point, though, we were already starting to teeter into like, all right, if it doesn't have martial arts, as long as it's like a cult classic action film, then, you know, we can make that work too. So we stretch it a little bit, but you know, at the end of the day, we definitely want to like try to cover, again, that full range of like, you know, Shaw Brothers, old school kung fu flicks, Bruce Lee flicks, and moving on up to your Van Dammes, your Seagulls, you know, again to your James Bond flicks now, you know, your boy is fighting again. This ain't just random punches and he gets lucky with the haymaker. Like, no, they are trained, you know, doing trained martial arts, hand-to-hand combat. So, you know, we like to cover all of that stuff. And it just gives us more range to work with too, which is great. So yeah.
Excellent, man. You know, very successful. You know, it's great because you're doing so much, and you could tell from just the way you explained everything that we talked about tonight that you're having fun with it, and you know,
yeah,
that's the goal.
Yeah, that's you know, it's all about, you know, peace, love, unity, and having fun too, man. It's all what we do it for. You know, that's what it's all about. It's what it's all about.
DJ Two Tone Jones, everybody.
Yeah, man. Thanks
Definitely
again for having me, man.
taking the time out to speak with us.
Oh yeah, my pleasure, man. My pleasure. Thanks again for again having me and taking this time to share with me too, man.
Now tell the people where they can go and support not only Contraband from India, as well as Shaolin Jazz projects, your mixtapes, and where they can reach out to you.
Yeah, you know, best way to start, of course, you know, hit me up on social media, IG, Twitter at DJ Two Tone Jones, all together, and that's the number 2. So not you know, don't spell it out, but yeah, check me out, follow me on there. And I usually also post to my own channels, like a lot of the Shaolin Jazz stuff, but definitely get a chance to go to shaolinjazz.com, or even follow Shaolin Jazz on social media as well at Shaolin Jazz. We actually have a handful of other really cool events we got coming up before the year's up. A lot of which is also partly in celebration of our 10 years of Shaolin Jazz. Unfortunately, most of it is here in the DC area, but we will be. The plan is definitely to crank out at least you know, 1 or 2 more virtual screenings also before the year's up. So definitely stay tuned for that. Get a chance, and yeah, next year, you know, Lord willing, you know, numbers go down by next year and all that good stuff. We'll definitely be back on the road with things, and yeah, very hopefully so. We'll be back up in New York again real soon too, man. So yeah, definitely check us out when you get a chance. Yeah,
Much appreciated.
no
On
doubt.
behalf of our HHDG media crew, the mayor, KB, Rock Vader KB, Skelly Top, T Smith, and myself, Wiki, we're going to say peace.
Word.